honestly the reason why connective tissue is so hard to heal as you get older, because it literally dries out as you get older. Connective tissue doesn't have the same kind of, system, a circulatory system that muscle has. So it's kind of, you have to actually really force fluid through the connective tissue in order for it to heal up properly. So, people who are older, injuries take forever to heal because of this. So what we're going to do here is actually put a lot of load on the body. Best example is hold the top of a squat, put the bar on your back and just stand there with it for like a minute. In the program, I do periods of 3 minutes, 2 minutes, and 1 minute strategically. And you're just standing there with the weight. You're not doing anything with it. You're just supporting it. You're letting that weight compress your connective tissue. Re-rack the weight. Now you do like a dead hang from the chin-up bar where you're decompressing the tissue. So you can imagine what this is doing is actually mechanically creating circulation through your connective tissue.
We believe that you are strong by design, and you were made in God's image to have a strong body, mind, and spirit. You're listening to the #1 strength and health authority podcast in the world. So let's get ready to unlock your potential and transform your life in today's episode.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Strong by Design podcast. This is host, Coach Chris Wilson. So honored to have you joining the podcast today. Thank you for being a listener of the show. If you're a return listener, thank you so much for coming back and for supporting us. And if you're a brand new listener, you're in for a very special treat with an old friend. I don't mean old in that he's like an old man. Just we've known him for many years. We go back quite a bit in this world of muscle strength and fitness, and really just a good friend of ours here at Critical Bench, Mr. Nick Nilsson. And we're going to get to some really good new material of his, a brand new book that he has out called Return to Prime. And you're going to find out a little bit of everything that you need to know about this great new project that he has here, and how beneficial this is for us men over 40 for sure. Nick is known as the mad scientist of muscle. No doubt, if you're an avid listener of the Strong by Design podcast or just an old fan of Critical Bench, you have seen his name before. We've done a lot of collaborations with Nick over the years. He's on our YouTube channel. We've promoted his products and programming now for a long, long time. And he truly is fascinating with the things that he has done personally in his life. And I'm sure we'll get to some more storytelling, because we always like to pick his brain to find out some of the crazy stuff that he does when it comes to muscle building, strength training, and pushing the limits. So, Nick, welcome back. I think this might be like is this your third time on the podcast? I feel like it's number 3.
I think it's at least 3, yeah, if not more. So 3 sounds about right. Yeah.
3 sounds, it feels right to me. I think I've had the honor of hosting all of them so far as well. And we always have such great conversations. And you had reached out a while back and said, you have this new book, this new release. And I was just interested in knowing more about it myself. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Let's time the podcast again and share it with all of our listeners, because the material is just so good. I always learn something when we get together and talk, and I know it's just a huge benefit to everyone out there. Just the conversation alone, people can make changes to their approach to training and stuff. But of course, this material that I have here in front of me is fantastic. This new project, Return to Prime, Reversing Muscle Loss After 40 by Rebooting Your Physiology. Really, really cool. Of course, we're guys that are sniffing. Now, you're maybe, a year or 2 older than me? You just crossed the threshold of 50?
Yeah, I'm 51 now.
51 now. Okay. Yeah. And I'm 49. So you got me by a couple of years. So, yeah. But you're able to maintain this, I don't want, aggressive might sound too intense. You're able to maintain an intense muscle training path while still looking out for, injury prevention and all these other things. And And I think that's really important to it, because a lot of guys, as we age, we can start to, things come up. Pain is part of the game now more than ever before. You stop kind of testing your limits, or you stay far from them. You're devoted to family life, to children, to work, to all these other things. So your training frequency and intensity decrease, and it's hard to get that back once you've stopped it for a while. Before we get into the material, have you had, as a guy that's, the mad scientist of muscle and has been doing this for decades, have you had your own moments where you've had gaps in your training, and maybe not even by choice? It was just like, I kind of dealing with this thing right now. I got to lay off for a little while.
Interestingly enough, I just put an article here today that talks about some of the mistakes I've made in my training. And one of those mistakes was actually taking a month off of training. And this wasn't even recently. This was 25 years ago. So,
you took a month off, and it's still paying the price.
And it's still sticking in my craw, man. But it was a time when we were moving from a townhome to a house, and I disassembled my entire gym, and we were running crazy and doing everything. And when I got back into training again, it's just that even then, when I would have been in, I don't know, early 30s, I guess, it affected me then. So it's like, now it's like, even if I know I'm not going to be having access to a gym, I still, do something, whether it's body weight training or, moving heavy objects around. Like, if I go into a hotel gym that doesn't have any, really good equipment, I'll actually lift the equipment sometimes. Like, I'll take the back end of the treadmill and I'll do deadlifts with it or something, But basically, there are times when you should kind of back off, and your body's telling you need to back off. That doesn't mean you have to stop completely, for the most part. I mean, in the case of some things, yeah, you probably should. If your doctor's telling you need to stop, then obviously listen to your doctor. Doctors will kind of cover themselves, so to speak, by telling you to do nothing, essentially. Right. So it's like there is a time when you do need to kind of, see what you are capable of, and kind of let pain be your guide, let, that kind of happen. But basically, I haven't really taken any big layoffs other than that in 35 plus years of training.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I would say the only factor would be, you're dealing with something from a health standpoint that kind of requires you to lay off. It's like, it might be just a week, it might be a couple of weeks, whatever. An example, a year ago, I had meniscus surgery on my knee. First time I've ever had anything like that. Minimally, what would that be? Minimally invasive, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where they go in, it's a very small incision. I mean, you're back to moving with it, within a day or two. You just have to be smart with what you're doing. But it didn't mean I couldn't do other things, upper body weight. I worked around it. The other caveat would be if you're really ill. So if you're fighting off, obviously, something where your immune system is, really being zapped, then maybe you need 2, 3, 4, 5 days, to recover. A week is different than a month. A week you won't feel like it'll benefit you, but it won't cost you something. A month has these exponential impact to it.
Usually you can go about 2 weeks before you really have a big impact.
Yeah.
But if you can get by with coming back after a week, even if just doing a little something, that's going to be much more helpful than just saying, screw it, I'm just going to take a whole month off. And and even I have people go through stressful times, and it's like, exercise can actually help you deal with that stress too. So it's like, don't push yourself as hard when you're dealing with stressful times. And, there are times when you really are so overwhelmed when you literally cannot do exercise, and there's no shame in having to take that time off too. So, it's.
Yeah. Well, and training one day can just be a really brisk walk outside, or you could even, a guy like you'll find a way to make that more effective. You'll say, I'm going to put a 40-pound pack on and I'll go out for a walk, something like that, where it's just benefiting me even more. Or I'll climb stairs in my hotel. I was just on a trip, and I did like 3 workouts over a 5-day period. 2 days were mostly travel days, so I really didn't do much on those days. But the 3 days in between, I did a workout each day, and that workout looked different. Combination of body weight with dumbbell stuff with cardio, inside and outside cardio. And I did stair climbing in the hotel. I was like, the weather was really nice. So I wanted to be outside and get fresh air and sunshine and just get in a lot of steps. And then I'm like, I'm going to take this into the stairwell and just go up and down several times for like 10 minutes and just to get the legs going and get a good sweat. So, what's cool about that is it's not always length of time. It's just quality of movement. You can do a lot in 20 to 30 minutes.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So okay. So let's give some love here to return to Prime. So just inside the cover is a image of you. You're basically saying, listen, I'm 50. I have the body of probably a guy in his early mid-20s who works out a lot, and you're a lifetime natural trainer, which I don't want that to be lost, because I think so many of us, like myself, I'm the same way. I'm a lifetime natural, and I don't have a stage-ready physique, okay? That's never been my goal necessarily. Yeah. It's not, I'm not looking to be 5-6% body fat and wear a thong and get judged by a bunch of people. Like that's not my thing. My thing is strength. My thing is physically capable. As like a man, I feel this like I have a duty to uphold. As a man, I need to be physically capable for my family, for protection, for all this, but also for my own desire to feel worthy of being a man. I need to feel like in any setting, any environment, I am able to deal with anything from a physical standpoint, whether it's pick somebody up and carry them, right? Or to be able to maintain and hold on to this physical strength that I was blessed with as a young person. I don't want to ever let it go away.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. My 20-year-old self could probably give my almost 50-year-old self a good whooping, at least from a cardiovascular, but I still feel very strong, very, the way I train, there's a lot of crossover similarities probably to how you train. You're doing a lot of the same stuff you were doing in your 20s. It just might look a little different, but you're also a lot smarter now. And you can navigate these things much, much better, which you work obviously into your programming. Yeah. So that's, I think, part of what makes this so great is like, you're just taking proven strength training methods and just finding different ways, variations, and interesting ways to do these lifts. And that a lot of people, as long as they have some modest equipment at home, can do.
Yeah, that's honestly been one of the biggest focuses of my training is simple equipment and what you can do with simple equipment. A lot of the stuff I do, it may look a little different, but it's like very basic movement patterns. It's just different ways of accomplishing those same movement patterns. So it's, it may look really weird to somebody when I'm, standing on the side of a power rack with the rail set like a ladder and then doing chin-ups like that with the forearms braced. It's like, that's a chin-up. But that's all on your biceps. So instead of doing a chin-up for your back, you're doing a chin-up for your biceps. That's one of my favorite ones. And it's literally the same vertical pull, just like you would do any other vertical pull. But by changing how you're using the equipment, it changes the focus of how it's affecting your muscles. And, you can do that with so many different things. And I'm still to this day, after literally 35 years of training, coming up with stuff that I like, why didn't I think of this 30 years ago kind of stuff?
Isn't that funny? Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah. It is crazy to think about because, you have still a very active YouTube presence, lots of content over the years on that, kind of showing all these different fun ways you can use a power rack with a barbell, some plates, and or dumbbells. And what you're, I mean, you really, beyond that, as long as you have a fair amount of weight, dumbbells up to, whatever, 60, 70, 80 pounds, depending on what people have. And like a couple, 200-300 pounds worth of plate weight, it's pretty fantastic what you're able to create in your own setting, your own environment. Yeah. And there's literally hundreds, if not thousands, of ways to implement these things. So
yeah,
it's so much fun to look at the pictures and the different video content. So I want to get through some of the things that you begin in your book discussing, which is a very real issue with guys, with women too, but I'm talking mostly to the guys right now in terms of our desire to maintain our muscle mass as we age, and what sarcopenia is, because a lot of people, maybe they aren't familiar with that. Educate our listeners a little bit about what that is, when does it occur, why does it occur?
Yeah, essentially sarcopenia is just age-related muscle wasting. It's a process by which, like the underlying systems in your body, the physiology of your body, starts to get less efficient, so your body can no longer hold on to the muscle mass. So it actually reduces the muscle mass, and you shrink, essentially. And that process generally starts around 40. But there are a lot of things you can do to help that. And that's what my new book is all about, basically, is delving into training not necessarily the muscle, but training the underlying systems that support your muscle. And that's something that I've not seen anybody else really address in the world of fitness here, is how to bring up the systems that help and support that. So you're building the base, and then when you go back to building, a muscle building program, the results are just like essentially what you were able to achieve 20 years ago. And this is not fiction. It actually is very research based and research supported. So a lot of the training methods that I use in the book, I've created myself, but based on research training protocols that have been proven in the real world to accomplish these specific goals that I talk about in the book.
What's happening for men or to men between 30 and 50 that's starting this process, or kind of a catalyst to why sarcopenia is even a thing?
In a lot of ways, it's due to lack of activity. I mean, men who generally go to the gym and exercise and lift weights and stuff, you don't see nearly as much of it. But men who don't, do anything with their body, they don't do anything against resistance, they're going to see the biggest impact from that kind of thing. So, when you're kind of in your 40s, 50s, 60s, if you do train regularly, even just regular training is really, really effective for that. The stuff that I talk about is to basically set that clock another 20 years back. So you can kind of, if you're 60, you can, work like it when you were in your 40s. If you're 50, work like you were in your 30s and that kind of thing. And so you're basically kind of resetting your clock back so you get a longer time to have that muscle. I mean, nothing is going to totally prevent that from happening, but this is going to substantially prevent that from happening.
Yeah, it's really kind of delaying. I've talked about this concept in other ways, even when it comes to your brain, is you're delaying the aging process a bit by tapping into the abilities that you have, maximizing them, and minimizing this degenerative effect that happens from lack of activity, maybe worse nutritional habits. But of course, there's a hormonal thing at play here too, is after 30, what's happening is we are losing our testosterone. But your training methods actually help to also stop that to some degree, or to lessen the effects of it.
The effect of it, yeah. And the beauty of the training methods that I have in the program is that they're not determined by how much testosterone you have. Like, these systems are physiological systems that, whether your testosterone is, high, low, medium, whatever, these systems are still kind of determining a lot of what happens with your muscles. So these don't even depend on having, super high testosterone levels. They're going to be useful regardless. And and we can definitely go through, there's 4 major systems that I address.
I have them right here. I wrote them down. You have these 4 phases. I definitely want to talk through these. It is important. I'll encourage anybody listening, any guy, before we get to these phases, there's a couple of things actually I want to touch on. Number 1 is, if you're hearing this and you're 20 something years old, do not start messing with your testosterone. Like, if you're unsure of what it might be, or you have curiosity, fine, and go get it tested. Do not start doing testosterone replacement therapy or any of this stuff. I feel like there's something that has happened in our culture today with a certain segment of the population. Young people are getting involved in messing with their hormones, their naturally occurring testosterone production and everything else. And I think it's really going to set them up for failure, and really stuff that we don't even know. You know what I mean? Because it hasn't been happening for long enough for us to really see the effects of it. But people in their 20s, your body's naturally still on the increase. I mean, men technically are kind of cap out around 30. Late 20s, early 30s is kind of when you're at your peak from a physical hormonal standpoint. So you should not be messing or touching that at all, in my opinion, unless you're one of the few that maybe has some type of underlying issue or that you need to go and seek some attention to figure that out. But most people don't need any help until they get to a certain stage.
What most guys kind of need is more to address some of the environmental factors that might be tanking their testosterone if they find that they do have lower testosterone.
That's right.
Like sleep,
drinking too
alcohol.
much, sleep. Yeah.
Yeah. Those are big ones that can have a major impact. And there's like environmental estrogens that you can avoid, avoid scented shampoos and perfumes and all these things that, a lot of colognes have these environmental estrogens in them, the xenoestrogens and stuff. And, just by kind of decreasing the estrogenic load in your body, you can, have an impact on that. And, you don't need to, artificially increase by going into TRT or anything like that, especially, like you said, 20s, 30s, it's just not necessary. And it can set you back. And we don't even know what the long-term effects of that are going to be.
No, we really don't. I mean, we don't have enough time behind us to see what is a guy in his 50s and 60s like after he's done TRT for the last 30 years. Like we don't know. We don't know what that looks like. Yeah. But I'll tell you what, once you start that stuff, you cannot go back. So you've shut off your own natural production of testosterone. And now you're having to probably go even further to squelch any increase in estrogen that's going to happen from doing artificial things, right? So now you're on a lifetime of having to take synthetic, drugs. And so that decision should not be made lightly, and it should really only be because it's, you've done the work, you've gotten the lab work done, maybe you're just suffering with some kind of condition and you need help. But otherwise, I think there's so much environmental stuff that we can do, from our diet to our exercise to not smoking to not drinking to, minimizing any kind of drug use. There's so much we can do. It's just people are crazy. They just want to do what they want to do. And and
shortcuts are attractive.
Yeah. They want to live the lifestyle they want to live regardless of, and then so I want to eat like crap, but I still want muscle. And, if there's a pill that I can pop to get there, I will. And I know you're not that guy. I've never been that guy. I want to do it the real way.
I actually enjoy the process. So some people are outcome oriented, I'm process oriented. So
yes.
It's like, if you enjoy the process, then, you can just keep on hammering away and you won't even, it's nice to accomplish what you want to accomplish, but it's like, if you enjoy the process, it's a game changer,
Yeah. The famous quote, right? Enjoy the journey. The destination's great, but you got to enjoy the journey, the path that you took to get there.
Absolutely.
And when you're able to really soak that up and enjoy that process, that's what life's all about, man. I mean, it's when those guys are hoisting up the Lombardi Trophy at the end of the year, or the Stanley Cup. Are they hoisting it up in the air just because of that one day, or what's flashing through their brain is all the hard work, all the practices, all the games, all the people involved in them getting to that one point?
Yeah.
And if you took all that away and it was just them on that day holding a trophy, that trophy's meaningless.
That's exactly right. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
the process that gives it meaning. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so don't rob yourself of the process. Do the hard work, because so much more gratifying and so much more lasting and healthy. It's the healthy approach, you know? So, yeah, I just want to touch on that because I think it's so important to not take those shortcuts unnecessarily. Like if you follow programming like Nick's return to prime here, like you are going to see, you know, lasting impact, especially if you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, you will see these effects in your 60s, 70s, and 80s. Like your life will look different because of the way that you trained over this period of time and what you implement. So let's talk first physiology reset, regeneration. Phase 1, you have angiogenesis training. What is that?
The primary focus of that is creating new blood vessel density. So in everything that feeds your muscles is the tiny little blood vessels, the capillaries. As we get older, your body starts to basically pinch those off. It starts to, you know, that's one of the reasons I find people as they get older, they want to have the house hotter, is because the circulation is impaired. So when your circulation is impaired, you're not as, you get more sensitive to cold. So, you know, what we're doing with this training is actually rebuilding those blood vessel pathways. If your muscle is not getting blood, that means it's not getting oxygen. That means it's not getting nutrition. It's not getting protein, amino acids. It needs to stay large and strong. So as you age and those capillaries start to disappear, that's why you lose muscle. That's one of the biggest reasons I find that sarcopenia happens, is that they're not getting fed. So what we're going to do with very specific training is open those pathways back up so your muscles can get fed again. And that's the reason that's phase 1, is because that's the whole basis of everything else that we're doing with this program, is you got to have that improved circulation. If you don't, then it's just not going to have the same effect. And normal training does this to some small degree, but it's kind of like, the analogy I like to use is trying to learn Spanish by watching soap operas on Telemundo. You know, you're going to get something out of it, but it's not going to be exactly what you're looking for. You know, so you're getting kind of some, you know, cross results from it. But this training is specifically designed to do exactly that, to improve circulation. And one of the most fun parts of this, it gives you like an absolutely monster pump when you're doing this, because you need to actually force as much blood into the muscles as possible. To give you an idea of how it works, example I like to use best is chest training. So you do a set of like dumbbell bench press for like 40, 50 reps, very lightweight, just basically cranking as many reps out as you can, pumping as much blood into the muscle as you can. That's one method for improving the circulation. But the trick is, as soon as you're done with that, you set those light weights down and you pick up a pair of weights that's 3 times that weight. So if you're going from like 30s or 25s, you're going right up to 85s. So right after you're doing a set of 50 reps, you grab the 85s and do 2 reps. Because what that does, it actually increases the local blood pressure inside that muscle. It's all full of muscle, all choked up with blood. Now what we're doing is basically ramming more blood and, you know, basically splitting those things open to force those new pathways for the blood to flow through. So by doing that, we use much heavier weight. We use a much kind of compensatory acceleration training where you're focusing on squeezing all the way to the top and really loading that muscle and really forcing a lot of blood pressure into that muscle. It's not detrimental to like overall blood pressure or your systemic blood pressure. That's not the goal there. It's localized just in that one muscle. And then once you do 2 reps, set the weight down, go right back to light weights and crank out as many more reps as you can with it. And then go back to 2 rep sets. And you do that 4 to 6 times.
Wow.
So you're
now,
basically...
Is there any break between, so say you do 40 reps with 25s.
Mhm.
And you start to get that nice, like you say, you get that nice pump. You put those down, you're immediately going to the 80s?
Yep.
Okay.
As
No
soon as
rest.
you
Yeah.
put them down immediately, grab the 85s. And as soon as you're done with 85s, put those down immediately, go back to the 25s.
Oh my God. Oh, so these are consecutive sets here. You are not resting at all.
This is like one giant set where you're going back and forth between really light and relatively heavy, like 4 to 6 times. So the whole set's going to last you like almost, 5 or 6 minutes by the time you're all done of nonstop blood pushing into that muscle.
Wow.
And that's one of the reasons why it's so effective for, forcing circulation increases, is because you're getting a lot of blood and then you're just really like keeping it there for as long as possible. You're, ramming it in, you're doing the heavier weight to really force that splitting open of new blood vessels. And again, that's a process that's been proven scientifically that does actually happen. This is really powerful stuff. And, you do that kind of training for 3 weeks. And one of the things I like to tell people is when you're doing this kind of training, you want to actually take a very specific supplement, because you need to have arginine inside the blood vessels in order for them to, your body to actually open up these new blood vessels. It has to be present, nitric oxide, arginine. But arginine, if you take it as an amino acid, will be taken up by your gut. It won't even get into your bloodstream hardly at all. So you need to take in L-citrulline, which then converts into arginine, which then gets into your bloodstream. So when you're doing this training, it's available right where it needs to be. And citrulline, if you've ever taken it, results in monster pumps because it's creates that nitric oxide effect in your body. So this is a good example of the kind of training that I like to say in this program. It's like all very science-based, and everything is really research-based. I really delved into the research to find out these protocols and to make sure that I knew what was required for these physiological effects to happen. So, this isn't just me thinking, oh, this is, something's going to work. It's like, no, this actually does work. This has been proven. So, I think that's one of the real keys with this kind of training is it's not just like, throwing stuff at the wall and hoping it sticks and thinking, okay, this is probably going to work. It's like, no, this is science-based. And when you do this, you will actually get that effect that you're looking for.
Wow. So phase 1, you said, is about 3 weeks in length?
Yeah, exactly 3 weeks. So, and what I like to do too is, because recovery is different for different people, especially as you get older, if you need to throw in an extra rest day or two, it's totally fine. It's not going to have any impact in terms of the effectiveness of the program. I've had people go through and, I say 3 weeks in the program, it takes them 4 weeks to get through the phase, and that's totally fine. It's just a matter of, having enough recovery in there that you get the most out of the training by being able to put the most effort into it. So, there's no harm at all in adding in extra rest days. So.
Yeah, right. And what looks super intense or super challenging for me might look different for somebody else. So you kind of tailor it to your own individual needs. It's like
Exactly.
some guys might need to start with a 15 or 20 pound dumbbell for the same exercise, and 50 might be, really heavy to them,
Exactly.
So obviously you got to experiment a little bit, I guess, in the beginning to figure out what those weights would be for you.
Exactly.
Another movement would be like a lat pull down and a pull up, right? You'd want to work with a very light weight, pulling the bar beneath you, maybe on a cable machine or some type of back machine where you're able to do really high rep work and then go and try and do 2 pull-ups or something, right? Would
Exactly.
that be a similar example of it?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a perfect example of it. Yeah. And, something that works a similar movement pattern, same muscle, it's going to have that same effect. So yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay. That's great. Wow, fun, different. So phase 2 now, after they've gone through that, is called your Connective Tissue Training phase, which is a little bit more about ramping up the health and the structures of the connective tissue. Now that you've already stimulated improved blood supply, now you're tackling an area of the body that's not known for really good blood movement and blood circulation, the connective tissues.
Exactly. And that's honestly the reason why connective tissue is so hard to heal as you get older, because it literally dries out as you get older. Connective tissue doesn't have the same kind of, system, a circulatory system that muscle has. So it's kind of, you have to actually really force fluid through the connective tissue in order for it to heal up properly. So, people who are older, injuries take forever to heal because of this. So what we're going to do here is actually put a lot of load on the body. Best example is hold the top of a squat, put the bar on your back, and just stand there with it for like a minute. In the program, I do periods of 3 minutes, 2 minutes, and 1 minute strategically. And you're just standing there with the weight. You're not doing anything with it. You're just supporting it. You're letting that weight compress your connective tissue. Re-rack the weight. Now you do like a dead hang from the chin-up bar where you're decompressing the tissue. So you can imagine what this is doing is actually mechanically creating circulation through your connective tissue. So this actually has massive potential for actually healing connective tissue beyond even just strengthening it. I've had people do the program and say that old injuries that have bothered them for years don't bother them anymore because their connective tissue actually healed up because of it.
Wow, fascinating.
It's powerful stuff. And for anybody who has never done like a static holds or connective tissue training like that, it feels like you're not doing anything. But you're letting that weight literally compress everything, and then you're actively decompressing. So creating that, forcing the fluid out, and your body has to suck the fluid back in, and then you're forcing it back out. So you're basically, just like the heart pumps blood through your muscles, this kind of loading and decompressing pumps fluid through your connective tissue. Now, beyond that, we go to the supplements, vitamin C and collagen. Very critical for rebuilding your connective tissue. We take that supplementary about an hour before training. So it's floating through your bloodstream. It's ready for your body to use. Now we do that training and it pulls it right into the connective tissue where it can be used for healing and strengthening. And then you're circulating it in where it needs to go. So you can imagine if you're taking this stuff, some of it might get in normally. When you're doing this stuff, it's a lot of uptake when you're forcing the issue like that.
Right. Yeah, it's more intentional, especially like you said, you know what supplements are the right ones to impact this area of the body or this type of tissue. And then it's timing. Yeah. It's okay, I'm going to take this. I mean, you obviously have done the work for everybody. So it's like, these are the two things I want you to take, and I want you to take them like an hour before your training so it's readily available and your body can soak that right up. It's like, it's no different than hydrating really well before a sport, you know what I mean? And knowing like, as long as I sip on Gatorade or water while I'm playing, good, I can do that. But because I drank a gallon of water over the last 24 hours before it, my body's already hydrated. I'm where I need to be to perform at my best. Yeah.
It's a good analogy is if you're building a house, and you have the boards, the 2x4s there at the job site already, rather than having to truck them in, piecemeal. It's like, no, they're all sitting right there waiting for you to be used to build your house. It's like, rather than like, okay, now I need another pallet of 2x4s. It's like, no, everything is right there. So you're just building the house, and there's, more efficiency that way. And the job is going to get done more effectively that way. And that's having the raw materials there to build that structure is huge.
Yeah. 100%. Raw materials. Yeah. I mean, and it goes all the way down to, protein always being obviously at the top of mind whenever you're eating good, healthy fats. And I'm sure I know you talk supplementation, you talk a little bit of nutrition in this program as well.
A little bit. Yeah. Not too much in depth. I do talk about like the kinds of macronutrients you can be eating to help the different phases. For example, like when you're doing the angiogenesis training, don't go low carb, because carbs hold on to a lot of water. We actually want that water in the system in order to have the muscle volume and the blood volume there. So, don't cut carbs in that phase. When you're on the connective tissue phase, you could potentially cut carbs because there's a hormonal effect. When you don't eat as many carbs, your body can secrete growth hormone, which is actually effective for strengthening connective tissue. So, don't eat a lot of carbs before your training and you get kind of a similar effect, but you can actually be on reduced carbs during that, and it won't affect the training at all. So it's interesting. I do cover that in the book, and it's like not specific diets, but here's kind of the general recommendations that are going to help with each phase.
Yeah. And generally, I mean, people just based on activity level need to be monitoring their carbohydrate intake, certainly, but you always need protein to be at a certain level, like always, always, always. And then your fats should always be at a relatively, like moderate, moderate level, moderate to high even, especially because if they're the right ones, like your olive oils and your fat, your omegas from fish and from, these are the fats that are super vital to how we feel, our energy, our sustainable energy, not feeling like we're up and down. Like carbs will make you feel kind of up and down. You have a good protein, fat rich meal to start your day. You're satiated for longer and you feel more stable. Your energy level feels more stable for a prolonged period of time versus
Absolutely,
having like high bread intake or sugar intake early in the day. And then an hour later, you're messed up.
Yeah. And then crash. Yeah.
But if you're a cyclist or a swimmer or some type of high output, aerobic event is coming up, you need those carbohydrates in order to feel right. Like you said, in the first phase is that high rep, high demand, like you need those carbohydrates in your system.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to touch on the connective tissue stuff is as you get older, a lot of people might be worried about supporting heavier weight on your back kind of thing. That actually is something you can train up. To give you an example from myself, a few weeks ago, I've been working at this for a while, mind you, but I supported 1,000 pounds on my back for a full minute.
Wow. So, and that was in your rack, in your power rack? Yeah.
Yeah. So literally I lift the weight up just like a couple inches and then I just stand there for like a minute with 1,000 pounds on my back. And I'm 51. So it's like you can develop your structure to support a lot of weight and it makes everything feel a lot lighter after that.
There's no doubt about it. And there's going to be people that are going, well, dude, I can't even do half that, nor would even dream of it. And nor do I want that barbell. I don't like the way the barbell feels on my back. I think a lot of people, if you don't get used to it when you're younger, you'll never be used to it. It's not.
Well, here's the beauty of it too, is like for something like that, go on the hack squat machine that has the pads on it.
Yes, exactly. There's other ways to load.
Yeah. We don't care about, if it's a machine, if it's free weight, whatever. We're just looking for the loading.
Right.
So it's like, you don't have to,
how about just handheld loading would work too, right? Some type of farmer's carry or,
I have those in the program too, actually. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
For
so
the
there's other ways to load besides putting the bar up on your back. You can load. You can't go as heavy typically because you're holding it in your own hands rather than resting on you. But there's other ways to do it.
Yeah, and it's very safe. So it's you start within your limits, of course, and then you kind of build up from there. So it's it's a process. For me, I've been doing that kind of training for like 30 or more years. So it's I can work up to some really insane stuff because I got like an adamantium skeleton at this point. So
well, yeah, your body is just different. Like neurologically, from a mental standpoint, what you're capable of, your limitations, but neurologically, like your nervous system has been exposed to this repeatedly over the decades. So it's just, it's capable of doing it, but it is a process and it's not going to happen overnight. That's the beauty of this program is that you just can kind of rotate through it numerous times and every time is going to be a different, a different effect on you.
Exactly.
Based on how hard you push it. So now phase 3 we're in is your hyperplasia training, which is to help improve your muscle fiber health. Talk about that.
This is hyperplasia is kind of goes along with hypertrophy, where hypertrophy is building the size of the current muscle fibers you've got. Hyperplasia is increasing the number of muscle fibers that you've got. And it does, it's been indirectly shown to happen in humans. The direct research that on hyperplasia has been done in animals like cats and birds. The training that's being done for these, animals is something that wouldn't want to do in people because it's like very high intensity stretch loaded training. So what I've done is kind of taken similar protocols, similar concepts and applied those to something that's actually doable in people. And I've run by my protocol by Dr. Jose Antonio, who actually did the studies on birds that showed 300% increase in muscle mass due to this kind of stretch loaded. And he actually thought they were pretty good and it could have a very good potential for working. So it's, like I said, going back to the science, is like, this is science-based stuff. I'm not like just hoping something's going to happen. It's like, I'm actually going to the experts to make sure that I'm on the right track here. So it's like, this kind of training, this stretch-based training, for example, you're taking dumbbell flies for a chest. You're holding that stretch position for 40 to 60 seconds, but you're not just letting the stretch be passive. So you come down into the bottom of the stretch, and then you come up just a tiny little bit. So you're in that stretch position. But here's the key. You're exerting 98% of the force it would take to actually lift that weight. So you're actually like trying to lift the weight. You're getting resisted loaded stretching, but you're not passively letting the weight stretch you. You're actually fighting that stretch, but not so much that you actually move the weight. So this is what really sets off that hyperplasia response in the human body. It's that stretch position. It's that resisted stretch position. So it's a very particular way to train, and it doesn't look any different from the outside from somebody just letting the weight stretch them. But everything is neurological. Like you said, it's the intention of what you're doing on the inside that makes the difference. And pretty much every time I've done this kind of training, I gain 7 to 10 pounds without even trying. It's actually really strange how it works, because it's actually a very effective method for hypertrophy as well as hyperplasia. Like, you actually have to get some hypertrophy before your body will split those muscle fibers to develop new muscle fibers. So it's actually very strongly anabolic, this phase of the program, and you may not even need to eat very much over top of your maintenance calorie level to accomplish this, but you'll accidentally build muscle when you're doing it, just as a side effect.
Wow, how cool!
And having more muscle, it's one of the reasons some people, when they're younger, are just naturally easy gainers.
Yeah.
They have more muscle fibers. As we get older, muscle fibers start to disappear.
Yeah.
Normally it's the fast twitch muscle fibers that go first. So those are the ones that make the muscle bigger. Those are the ones that make muscle stronger. Those are the ones we want back. So that's what we're trying to do here, is to build back those
100%
muscle fibers and turn you from a hard gainer back into an easy gainer.
And for our listeners, fast twitch versus slow twitch muscle fibers, explain maybe the difference between like an athlete. Which type of athlete would have fast twitch? Which type would have slow twitch?
Yeah. For example, the fast twitch is, you think fast, think sprinter. Think somebody who's going fast and explosive. You're thinking sprinters. You're looking at people who can jump really high, really far. You're looking at Olympic weightlifters. Send them for a 1 mile run, they'll be gassed, because they're, high predominance of fast twitch muscle fibers, the ones that are really strong and powerful. Slow twitch, you're looking at endurance, that kind of thing, long distance runners.
Yep. Like an Ironman versus an Olympic powerlifter. Yeah.
Exactly.
Or sprinter. Yeah. That's and it'd be a perfect example is like, compare the physique, the body of a sprinter to a marathoner.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're both extraordinarily fit. You can't take that away from them. And they both could live wonderfully long, active lives, but their structures and their muscles are very, very different.
Yeah, they're very, very differently suited. And part of it is a side effect of the training. Part of it is a selection of people who are the top level sprinters are going to gravitate to something they're good at, just like 100%. Distance runners. So it's...
Oh, I've seen it. I've seen it in youth, coaching youth baseball all these years. I can see a kid sometimes when he's like 7, 8 years old, and you can tell by his body type and by how he moves at such a young age, like, this kid needs to go into track.
Yeah. He's
a lightning bolt already. Yep. And then you get these other kids who aren't necessarily, but they might be amazing in cross country running. So it's just you're kind of selected to some degree, but you can overcome deficiencies too, based on what you do, how you train, how you...
Absolutely, yeah. I'm using myself as an example. I was a long distance runner in high school.
Right.
I could run like crazy. I did a triathlon without even training for it. And now I can do, by changing how I was training, I still have the same kind of underlying structure, but I developed the fast twitch fibers that I did have to a fairly high degree, so I could actually be a lot stronger too. So,
oh, very cool. So, and I meant to touch on this too. So, are all the phases 3 weeks?
They are all 3 weeks. Yeah,
they're all 3 weeks. Okay.
Yeah, and like I said, you can insert rest days as needed.
Yep.
So it's very forgiving in that way, because the goal is not to try and kill anybody. we actually want you to get a lot out of this program. So, I always say, it's, if a trainer is setting out to really destroy somebody, then they're a terrible trainer. Anybody can fatigue somebody. That's, it doesn't take any brains at all to do that. But to actually go into a session and come out feeling like you're stronger and you're better after it, that's the real goal.
100%. Yeah. No, you got to have people's best interests in mind, whether you're a trainer, a strength coach, or creating a program like this that for people to follow. It's like you have to go at it.
My goal is to build you, not destroy you.
Exactly right. You have to go at it intelligently with your. Yeah. We all do have some limitations, and Absolutely. You just have to know what they are and work with them, but don't let them stop, prevent you from doing something.
Yeah. Push them and see what you're capable of, and then increase them.
That's exactly right. It's just a methodical kind of increase. So we're through our 3 phases. We're into our 4th phase, the nervous system efficiency training. Discuss that a little bit.
So one of the biggest things with your nervous system is you can't grow back your nerves. So as we get older, we do lose nerve cells. That's just a fact of life. All the research I've done shows that there's really no way to build that back. So what we need to do is actually work on our nervous system efficiency. So working with what we've got and make that as efficient as possible. So for example, like most people are walking around there, maybe let's say 60% efficiency in the nervous system. An elite athlete is going to have like 80, 85, maybe even 90% efficiency in their nervous system. It's the reason why weight class athletes can keep getting stronger without going up into a higher weight class. So they develop their technique better, their nervous system becomes more efficient. So that's what we're going to do with this type of training, is because we can't, increase your nervous system, we're going to take what you've got and actually make that work better. So if you're already at 60, we're going to bump that up to 70, 75%. And there's very specific, very effective training you can do for this nervous system efficiency. One of my favorite methods is single rep cluster training, where, for example, you'll take a weight that's maybe about 90 to 93% of your 1 rep max. So for example, if you're doing bench press, if your max is 200 pounds, then we take like 180, 190 pounds, do 1 rep with it, 1 perfect rep with it. We're doing a repeated effort of perfect single reps. So you do 1 rep, you rest 20 seconds. You do 1 rep, you rest 20 seconds, and then you do that for 20 reps straight. So you're going to take a weight you normally could get 3 to 5 reps with, and you're going to do it for a set of 20 in this very specific single rep at a time pattern. And the reason it works your nervous system effectively is your first rep on an exercise is never your best rep. Your second rep is your best rep. So the reason for that is the first rep is your body kind of trying to figure out what's going on. The second rep, your body knows what's going on, what needs to happen. So it's much more efficient in that second rep. And there is kind of a carryover in your nervous system between those reps. And what we're doing here is taking advantage of that carryover by doing a single rep. It's not going to, really dig into your recovery that much. If you can do 3 to 5 reps with it, doing 1 rep of it's not going to, kill you.
Deplete you that much,
so
right?
You rest 20 seconds. That gives you enough for your energy systems to rebuild back to where almost, they were at the top again. And then you do another rep, and that's a perfect rep. And you drill that, you burn that technique into your nervous system by doing these single perfect reps with relatively heavy weight. And one of the things a lot of people don't realize is that a 10 rep max on your bench press weight versus a 1 rep max on your bench press weight is a different exercise. It may seem like it's the same exercise, and it is, very similar, but it's actually that amount of loading changes the exercise. So what we're doing is teaching our body to, function at that higher level and be stronger, essentially, and get used to that weight that's heavier. And you're doing it by, this very targeted, very specific application of repetitions. And you'll actually find that you're between your 5th to 10th rep are going to be your best reps, not even like your 1st or 2nd. It's like, right. You're still once you develop that groove, that exercise is just going to feel better and better. And that actually carries over to nervous system adaptations. So that's the kind of training I'm talking about with nervous system efficiency training.
Yeah. And that's really cool too, because if you just say, okay, I'm going to work with, 90 to 93% of my 1 rep max. So you use 200 pounds. So let's say 180 pounds. I'm going to bench press that once. I'm going to rest 20 seconds. I'm going to bench it again. I'm going to rest 20 seconds. I'm going to bench it again. I'm going to do that 20 times. So I will have done 20 reps with 90 to 93% of my 1 rep max in a fairly short period of time, which is a heck of a lot more than if you say did 4 or 5 sets of 3 reps. You did 20 reps now, and you did them all fairly well. And like you said, your best reps were probably reps 10 or let's say 5 through 13 or 14, maybe before there starts to be a drop off. And so I like that. I mean, it's almost like you're doing more work with that load in a short period of time too, because you're getting all this done in under 20 minutes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that kind of thing, it'll take you about 10 minutes to get through probably, maybe even less. And it's very targeted practice, because one of the things I drill into people when you're doing this, for example, the bench press is actually a really good example of this, is when you're doing more than a couple of reps, you start to lose that positioning in your shoulder blades. You want the shoulder blades tucked in, your arms in, like your shoulder blades in your back pocket kind of thing, they like to say. As you do more reps, as you come to the top, your shoulder blades spread out. So if you're doing a lot of reps, your positioning gradually gets worse and worse over time. What we're doing with this is, by doing single reps, you're able to use the perfect setup and the perfect practice every single time. So you're drilling in that perfect form into your nervous system every single time. And, once you start to break form, that's when even if you don't get to 20, that's fine. If your form starts to break or you start to get into the grinding reps, that's when we cut it off. So, because that's when you start to really get into your nervous system overactivation, and that's what we're trying to avoid too. So if you're like on rep 18 and it's like, oh, you can feel you're starting to grind it, just that's the end of the set, and especially with the bench press too, because once you start to grind, that's when the injuries happen in your shoulders. That's when the mechanics start to change in your shoulders, and that's when you start really getting the issues. So it's, we want to maintain basically ideal form on every single rep, because that's what we want to burn into your nervous system.
Yeah. And there's so much value too in never shying away from the tried and true compound, complex, full body movements of deadlifts, squats, and bench press. Meaning there's lots of variations to these, and they can look different, whether it's a barbell or dumbbell, right? Or you're in a power rack, or you're using a bench, or whatever it is. But sticking with what works, when you're having to load the entire body. The bench press isn't just a chest exercise. The squat is not just a quad glute exercise. The deadlift isn't just it's a full posterior lift that you're getting grips, you're working grip, you're working your hamstrings, you're working your back, you're working every structure of the body. I mean, the deadlift, in my opinion, is the best movement you can do. I don't know that you can make arguments for every exercise, obviously, of the compound exercises, but I think it's the most beneficial for life. Being able to bend down and pick something up that's very heavy, and grip work, especially as we get older, becomes more and more important. Absolutely. Our ability to actually grab and hold something powerfully in our hands is hugely important. But I love all this stuff. So much fun to talk about it. I'd like for you to touch on too this controlled overtraining concept that you mentioned, accumulation and intensification. Will you talk about that?
Absolutely, yeah. Essentially, this is high volume, and then low volume and higher intensity. So the best analogy I find is like when you're driving a car and you're going up a hill. So you have to push the gas down really hard when it's a really steep hill. So you're building up the volume, you're using shorter rest periods. As you get to the top of the hill, after for example, 3 weeks, like phase 1 is kind of a high volume program. That's when you come up the other side and you increase the rest periods. You increase the weight, but you do a lot less sets. So it's like you're ramping up the volume and you're kind of overloading yourself. You're accumulating fatigue, you're accumulating training volume, and then you intensify that training volume by backing off on the amount of sets you're doing, increasing the weight and increasing the rest periods. This is, again, a very tried and true method. Bulgarians used to use this for their weightlifting, how they would, push a lot of volume and then they would come back down into longer rest periods. And it works phenomenally well for building strength. And the phases of this program are kind of designed with that in mind. So the first phase with the angiogenesis training, it's a lot of high volume work. When you're doing the static holds with just weight, you're using a lot of weight. That's intensification. You're using a lot of weight, which is, as a percentage of your 1 rep max, so to speak. So the higher that is, the more intense the exercise is. It's not intense like, the more you scream, the more intense it is. That's a whole different measurement. But this second phase is that intensification. So we get into the hyperplasia phase next, and we ramp that volume back up. Like, for example, the hyperplasia phase, you're actually training 6 days a week, and you're doing a whole body every single day on those 6 days a week for 3 weeks straight. But because you're not doing a lot of actual movement in that phase, you can actually recover from that. And we actually want incomplete recovery because that's what is going to cause that hyperplasia effect. So it's, there's a lot of factors involved too. And then obviously we get to the nervous system training, which is, heavier weight, more intense training. And, the whole program kind of goes in that wavy pattern. And this is how your body adapts and responds to training. If you've ever done a lot of volume training, eventually you get to the point where you're like, I just can't do anymore. And then you naturally want to back off to doing less. That's what this is. So only it's managed and it's strategic.
Wow. Awesome. Are there any other insights that I have not alluded to or mentioned, or concepts that you would like to mention about this program?
I think the biggest thing with this program is kind of getting the fact that it's targeting your physiology, that it's so different from what you've probably been used to doing before. This is literally covering my entire training career of experience to put something like this together. It's like the magnum opus of this is not even muscle building stuff, but this is the stuff that supports your body. This is the stuff that's going to help your body build muscle well into your 60s, 70s, 80s. And the sooner you start doing some of it, the better off your body is going to be. And you can, do this a couple of times through. You can do it once a year. You can do it one time and see how it works for you. But after you do this training, everything else you do after is going to work better because of how this training adapts to your body. Your body adapts to this training, I should say. So I think that's one of the key things is this is going to help everything else you do be better after that because of the systemic effects it has on your body.
Yeah. I do like it for all those reasons. It's a great point to make. And we're never, we kind of talked about it at the start, where as we get older, we start to shy away from things that are hard or intense or considered aggressive because, I'm older now. I gotta live in this safe space. And it's like, while some of that is true, it doesn't mean that you should abandon things that you once did. You might just need to tailor them a little bit. They might look a little bit different. Your poundages might look a little different, but that's okay.
Yeah.
What was once hard in your 30s might be impossible in your 60s, but not if you dial it back a little bit. So maybe you're doing 80% or 70% of what you once did, which is now your new 100% or whatever. But it doesn't mean that we have to abandon or completely go away from it. I'm a huge believer in we should never stop doing something just because of our age.
Yeah. What's that quote? Rage against the dying of the light,
Yeah, 100%.
Don't go fade into that good night, don't go quietly.
Because it's kind of like what happens to people when they just, they're working their whole lives, right? They're working and they have purpose and they have an energy about them and they wake up every day and they put their 2 feet on the ground and they go and they get their work done for the day and And they do that for decades and decades. And then one day they wake up at 66 years old and they say, I don't have to do that anymore. I've stopped. I'm retired. So now my life looks different. But now what happened? Now what do I do?
Yeah.
What's my purpose now? And I'm equating it to that, not saying that, hey, maybe now you've filled your life with vacations and travel and visiting friends and family and grandchildren and all that stuff. That's great. My point is this: don't have nothing to do. Because when you have nothing, when you have a void, everything stops, and what's beyond that is frightening to me, because there's nothing there. So there's no stimulation. Your body's the same way. If you're not stimulating yourself with resistance, you're going the other way. You're going to have atrophy.
Yeah.
And like this, and all you're doing is helping the sarcopenia process. So this natural process that's going to happen to all of us as we get older, you're just helping it along.
Yeah.
And so that's what I love about your program is it's kind of hitting us in all these phases. It's helping our blood vessels. It's helping our connective tissues. It's helping our muscle structure, and it's helping our nervous system, and setting us up with all this foundational stuff that can carry us very nicely into our 70s, 80s, and beyond. And maybe we've lost a percentage of what we once had, but it hasn't completely gone away. If 10 years from now, I'm 95% as fit as I am now, or as strong as I am right now, I think I'm doing a pretty good job.
Yeah.
I don't have to be half as strong or half as muscular as I am now 10 years from now, but I will be if I stop, or if I stop the intensity, or I stop the frequency of my training.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So this is really good stuff. Well, this is a lengthy, by the way, I didn't talk about that at all, but this is 240 pages I'm looking at, this PDF.
Yeah, it's a lot of that is the actual training program too. So it's like the theory on this is probably about half of what's in there, and there's a supplement on a section on supplements. There's a section on training equipment, but the most of the meat of this is it's literally like meat. There's no fluff in here. I don't believe in doing that, because I don't like to see that myself when I'm reading something. I'm like, just give me what I need to know. It's like, okay, here's enough. I went right to the point on everything. It's like, okay, here's this, here's why you do it, here's how it works, here's the benefits, and then here is exactly how to do it in the program. And it's like, I know people don't have time to read 1,000 pages, but it's like, you have time to read like maybe 40 to 50 pages, and you don't have to read the whole thing at once too. Like, you can just read one phase, work on that while you're doing the one phase. Okay, now read a little bit ahead, work on what you're going to do in the second phase. So it's not even something where you need to read the entire thing all in one shot.
Yep.
It's like, read what you're going to be doing for the next few weeks, focus on that, and then move to the next phase.
Yeah. No, this is great, because the focus of it is really to change you structurally, but what's, in terms of like how our bones, how our muscles function, the strength of them, the endurance of them, the capacity that they will have. But what the cool side effect is you get the aesthetic side effect. Like, you wouldn't say that this is a bodybuilding program, because it's not like a typical bodybuilding program, but
No.
you're, of course, the side effect of training this way is that your physique will change and look better.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's great. Well, this is fun, man. I love, like I said, chatting with you about this, learning from you. I think there's so much in here that can benefit people who are serious about changing their physiology. That this will absolutely do it. And like you said, there's a lot of science behind it. You have a lot of reference material in here. There's the supplemental, the supplemental information in there that will help people answer a lot of questions, things that we didn't even cover in our conversation. So this is great. And again, it's called Return to Prime by the man, Nick Nilsson. We will have a link, of course, in the description of this episode. So anyone interested in learning more, reading up on this, you can go to that link and find out more about what Nick's doing. I recommend going to his YouTube channel and anywhere else. Nick, why don't you tell them where else they can go and just soak up some of your resources?
The best place to go is my website, madscientistofmuscle.com. I have a lot of crazy stuff on there. It's covering muscle building, strength training, fat loss, unique exercise variations and stuff. I've got hundreds of pages of stuff on there that really covers a lot of different areas. So that's the best place to go. And then you can see what all books I have available through there as well. So
yeah, you've created a lot of material over the years. Obviously, lots of good stuff. But this being, like you said, this is kind of like a culmination, I think, of a lot of the work that you have done over the decades. Everything you've learned, things you've tried and tested, and like we said, he's the mad scientist of muscle. So there's a lot that he's done in his lab over the years. So we appreciate you making the time to be on the podcast, and we hope our listeners take advantage of this awesome new creation.
And I'm available to support anytime people have questions too. So it's like, once you buy the book, you have access to my experience there too as well. So I'm happy to help if anybody has any questions as I go through it too.
Yeah,
so and you're never alone.
You have a great newsletter as well. I get emails regularly with a lot of your content, so that's always good. I encourage people to try and get onto your newsletter and see some of your material that you're sending out regularly. That's always great. And we thank all of our listeners for coming back to the Strong by Design podcast regularly. This year a little different. We were up through 2024. We were doing a new release every single week. We've scaled back just a little bit, but it's maybe even to just a temporary change where we're still doing a lot of material. It's just not always weekly, but lots of episodes. Gosh, we're almost at 400 episodes. I mean, we're very close. I forget what episode number this will be as we record, but we are sniffing 400, which is pretty awesome.
That's awesome.
And it's been a fun ride as we are kind of wrapping up our 7th year and coming into our 8th season soon on the podcast. So lots of great stuff to go back and listen to. Go check out Nick's old episodes. I'll share those older episodes in the show notes in the description for today's episode, so you can go back and listen to our older conversations, which are still really, really good and highly valuable. So thanks for finding our show and sharing it with friends or family members. We appreciate it. That's how we continue to grow and reach people. And we'll be back soon enough with another fantastic episode and another guest, another expert in their field. And we just are encouraged by you. And God bless you. Take care of yourself. We'll see you soon.
Thank you so much for listening to the Strong by Design podcast. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe so that more people can find out about our show. Plus, you don't want to miss any future episodes with the amazing guests and topics we have lined up for you.